Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another retro RPG. And a very retro one this time, because this is Star Trek Adventure Gaming in the Final Frontier, which came out in 1978 from Heritage Games. Now, Heritage Games need a mention themselves, because they weren't really an RPG publisher, although they did publish a few. And they came at it from the miniatures side of things. So they got the license from Paramount to make Star Trek miniatures, and they released this game to support that line and give you something to do with your miniatures. Um, but they obviously became quite good at it because they did lose a bunch of staff later on to TSR. People moved on. Now, itself, it's the first Star Trek role playing game. For a long time, I thought the Phasma version was the first one, and obviously there have been a couple since then leading up to Star Trek Adventures from Modiphius, which is the current version of the Star Trek game. But I always thought Phasma, when they brought their game out in 1982, were early enough in role playing that they were the first. But alas, not. This is the actual first Star Trek role playing game. And there's not a lot to it. It's only 36 pages, so we're going to have a brief look through. If you want to get access to a copy, it's available on a website called Scribd, where they've got the rulebooks and a few supplements for it. Now, I can only guess that that's completely legal because a nice big website like Scribd surely can't be hosting pirated material. So, fingers crossed, they've got the licensing all sorted out for that. But anyway, it's an interesting look. Now, inside, after a very basic cover, no picture of the Enterprise or anything on it at all, we've got an introduction. Star Trek was a relatively short lived series of television episodes which touched the audience and has lived on in the minds and hearts for the past decade. It was the first earnest effort on the part of television to bring legitimate science fiction to the people of America on a weekly basis. The series itself depicted the exploits of the Starship Enterprise. Each week, the crew would experience a major adventure. But adventure is common television. The difference here was the imagination, wit, and intelligence in the adventure. There was no attempt at cardboard heroes and equally shallow villains in a never-ending conflict. Rather, the bridge crew of the Enterprise were all people with power and weakness, humour and discipline. They had more than just the life of the series behind them, but seemed to be people you would like to go party with. People who would make good friends and bad enemies. The players existed as a persona that TV viewers felt he could know and respect. And we've got to remember, this is a year before the movie came out, Star Trek the Motion Picture. So this is based on the original 3 seasons of the television series, and I think it's 2 seasons of the animated series. And this digs into the animated series and supports it, which I think is a really cool thing. It makes it, out of the box, way more expansive than the Phasma one, because the Phasma one only had alien species as a very basic thing. You had Vulcans, I think, were the only detailed one in the main box. But this supports a bunch of the alien races which were in the bridge crew of the animated series, as well as more villains than just the Klingons and Romulans. There's the Kzinti and other things in here. Now, as a brief game, these aren't exactly detailed, but the fact that it supports them at all is kind of cool. So we've got an introduction down here as well. Heritage Models has designed an exclusive line of Star Trek miniatures on the bridge crew and all of the special aliens and creatures of Star Trek. Carrying on. Preparation. What's needed for play? You need some 3x5 cards, plenty of scratch paper, and plenty of regular 6-sided dice. Preparation. The mission master will require a little time before beginning of the game to prepare his scenario. And we've got the basic game rules, talking through their attributes, so strength, dexterity, luck, mentality, charisma, constitution. And then basically we've got characters or attributes for the main Star Trek personalities. So we've got Captain James T. Kirk here. Strength 13, Dex 14, Luck 15, Mentality 14. Now, I have to argue with some of the stats. If mentality is how intelligent they are, I would have thought that other characters might have been smarter, because Scotty here, the chief engineer, so should be a fairly darn intelligent character, has mentality 12, so 2 lower than Kirk. But, as is obvious from the TV series, Spock wins on just about everything. He's got a much higher strength than everybody else, dexterity, his luck is lower, which makes sense. His mentality's higher. His charisma's a little lower than most characters, although the same as McCoy and still higher than Scotty. And his constitution is very high. We've got various stuff that we've got. So he's in command, he's got phaser 2, communicator, class 2 hand-to-hand, +2 to initiation, and +5 in hand-to-hand for Kirk. And we go through the different characters. So Spock, Scotty, McCoy, Uhura, Sulu, Pavel Chekhov, Yeoman Janice Rand, Christine Chappell, Lieutenant Mores, Lieutenant Erex, which were two of the characters out of the animated series. We've got Captain Koloth of the Klingons, Lieutenant Korax, standard Klingon soldier, Subcommander Tal of the Romulans, standard Romulan soldier, Basic Gorn, a Chuffed captain, a Kazin warrior, and a standard Starfleet security guard. And then we've got things through here basically telling you how to do it. So, for learning rolls, where you're trying to figure something out, you're going to be rolling 3d6 and you're trying to roll lower than your mentality. So, Kirk's 14, he stands a relatively good chance of being able to roll 3d6 lower than that. Spock as having, 16? Mentality 16 stands a very good chance. There's very rare occasions which on 3d6 you're going to roll 17 or 18. We've got various psionics in here, saving throws, how the transporter's used, because this is all about away missions. The game does not have any Starship combat in it at all, because they didn't make Starship miniatures. They just made character miniatures. So all of the rules in here are about those, so it's all about away missions. We've got the basic combat rules, movement, hand-to-hand combat, ranged combat, record keeping, how to handle creatures in combat, the different basic weapon types, so phaser 1s, phaser 2s, disruptors, and sonic disruptors. We've got hit probability tables, basic game equipment rules, tricorders, communicators, medkits, Romulan, Klingon communicators, and talks you through how to play a scenario. Then we've got basic game scenario 1, the shuttlecraft crash. I don't know why I'm having difficulty saying that. Which is a bunch of locations on a map where the players have to have crashed their shuttlecraft and they have to go out to find replacement dilithium crystals. So they're searching around like in a dungeon, and there's various encounters with creatures on the planet, natural traps, and they will find dilithium crystals or ordinary lithium crystals which aren't as good. Carrying on through, we've got an advanced game scenario, the Slaver Ruins. And this is another one where there's some ruins, the crashed alien spacecraft, and different encounters they have. These are very, very basic adventures, but this is 1978. You know, we weren't into massive amounts of role-playing. There was just basic stuff going on here. We've got going on to character creation. So, as well as being able to play one of the pre-built characters, you can make your own. We've got how to hand out the attributes, how advanced game psionics are handled, so different powers, empathy, telepathy, telekinesis, clairvoyance, precognition, mind control, and teleportation. And more details of those, special empathy in there. We've got familiar Star Trek life forms. So Andorians, plus adjustments. So Andorians have strength +2, dexterity +3, control +2. Aquans, Baston Neurinos, Caitians, Capellan Powercats, Capellans, Dramians, Edoans, Elasians, EM/3 Green, Giant Dryworms, Gormers, Gorn, Gossamer Mice, Halofish, Hate Entities, Horta, Humans, Klingons, Zinti, Lactrans, and these have additions or basic stats. What else we got here? Orions, Organians, although it's spelled as Oranians. M113 creature, the Salt Vampire, from throughout the TV series and animated series. We've got Telosians there, Tholians, Tellarites, way more races than the Phasma game has. And, okay, it just has a very basic description, but you've got your adjustments here. You know, Tellarites have a -2 charisma modifier. It's nothing much to play with, but you are a slightly different character. Creating alien creatures, general type and shape. Different dice rolls to randomly create, what size of the creature, what capabilities it might have. You can randomly roll. Size modifiers, its basic movement, how to handle creatures in combat. And then we've got advanced game equipment, so backpacks, belt lights, Finburger, used to trace energy sources, power packs, psychic probes. Selected list of equipment and weapons, so Klingon agonizers, anti-contamination suits, all the details for those, including the wonderful psycho tricorder to scan for psychic effects, which they kind of forgot about in Next Gen. I always thought it was a bit sad that they'd never dragged that one out. Advanced combat rules, so we've got initiation, hand-to-hand combat. Advanced hand-to-hand combat weapons, so instead of just slugging away at each other, you can use clubs, knives, lurper. This is way before bat'leths were introduced in Next Gen. Ranged weapon combat, along with a lot more ranged weapons in a more advanced game. Armor and shielding, so if you put on a set of chainmail or are carrying a shield, how to handle that. More advanced hit probability tables, grenade-type weapons, and advice on how to create your own scenarios. Different kinds of scenarios possible are listed. Interstellar police, space salvage, war, landing parties. Considerable ideas can be gained from the following sources: the Starfleet Technical Manual, Star Trek Concordance, Making a Star Trek, World of Star Trek, the Star Trek Logs 1 to 10, which I remember reading. They were absolute fabulous breakdowns of episodes going from the original scripts. So in some ways they differed from the broadcast episodes, but had a lot more background information. I really did love those. Star Trek Blueprints, Medical Reference, Starfleet Handbooks from New Eye Studios. It's really suggesting a lot of things. This set of rules is based on the systems developed for Space Patrol. Both games can be used together to make even more interesting scenarios. Notes to the Mission Master to give various ideas. Mention of Joe Trimble there, who was led the campaign to keep Star Trek on the air when it was cancelled the first time. What else we got? Form to select which miniatures you want to get. So there's Talosians, there's Captain Kirk, etc. For some reason, there's not a contents page at the start. There's this index at the back to help you find stuff. And then finally, there's a nice little hex page. So if we go back to the beginning, it's a nice little game. Very, very basic. Only 36 pages, as I said. Once you take out things like the graph paper, the cover, etc. But it's fun. It's very adaptable. I'll cover the rules themselves in a rules breakdown, but I really liked looking through this. I loved the way that it incorporated the animated series, because there wasn't any more source. There weren't dozens and dozens of TV series and novels and movies and everything that we have now. They had 3 seasons of the TV series, 2 seasons of animated, and that was your lot. So they dug into everything and used everything they could. Absolutely great stuff. But anyway, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough as usual. So thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.